What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Ukrainian Vietnamese Doshirak 1968. Vietnam, Hanoi. The war is still raging. Life in the country is extremely hard. In this year, in the family of a serviceman and a tea seller, a boy was born, the future first billionaire of Vietnam and one of the richest people in the world. But back then, in the late 60s and 70s, no one knew it yet. Pham Nhat Vuong, the boy's name, loved math. Even at school, some people thought he was already a prodigy, but that didn't make life any easier. When the war ended, Pham Nhat Vuong was only 7 years old. His father did not earn anything and his mother fed the family. There is no precise information about her work. Most sources refer to her as a street tea vendor, but this is probably not entirely true, and those who say she had her own tea shop are right. Forbes magazine in 2013, in an article about Pham Nhat Vuong, referred to her as a tea shop manager. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain how she was able to not only feed her family but also get her son a job at a geological institute after graduation. Here again he distinguished himself with his abilities in mathematics and received a scholarship to study at the Moscow Geological Exploration Institute, now called the Russian State Geological Exploration University, in the Department of Economics. Of course, Pham Nhat Vuong left poor Vietnam for the then quite friendly country with high hopes. In 1993, the year I graduated from university, a friendly country had ceased to be not only friendly, but also a country, in a good sense of the word. It was not very interesting to stay in Russia at that time, but I did not want to return to Vietnam either. It was no better there. After some thought, Pham Nhat Vuong went to Ukraine. Why he chose it, there is no data. But as time showed, it was a good choice. Either Pham Nhat Vuong remembered his mother's tea shop or something else, but he came up with a very profitable business. He opened a Vietnamese restaurant called Thai Nguyen Vietnam. The prices were very low, so the place was a success. But in a poor country you could think of something even more affordable. Pham Nhat Vuong would later say about Ukraine at that time, Ukrainians were very poor and very hungry. Ukrainians were very poor and very hungry. Forbes, 2013. This had to be taken advantage of somehow, and as a result, the company Technocom was born, which in 1995 began to produce instant noodles Mavina. However, to organize such a business it was necessary to get a loan of $100,000 at 8% per month. It's funny that the same Forbes has this phrase, he bet everything by borrowing money at a criminally high interest rate, 8% a month. In Russian it is approximately as follows, he bet everything by borrowing money at a criminally high interest rate, 8% a month. What do you know about criminally high interest rate? Well, let's not talk about sad things. Technocom's products have become so popular among Ukrainians that the word Mavina has come to refer to all instant noodles. So, Pham Nhat Vuong has made something like our Doshirak. This is already a success, but he did not want to stop there. I will not dwell on how Pham Nhat Vuong returned to Vietnam in 2001 and decided to make it a country that tourists would want to visit, and that Vietnamese people themselves would be proud of. The businessman set up a whole group of companies, Vin Group, which started with construction and then became involved in trade, electronics, and hotel business. Pham Nhat Vuong built the largest hotels in Vietnam, a network of schools and hospitals, a local amusement park, a La Disneyland, and he sold his first company Technocom to Nestle for $150 million back in 2010. What does this have to do with cars? The fact is that one of the companies that make up the Vin Group empire is Very Vin, the first independent automaker in Vietnam. The company was organized in 2017, when Pham Nhat Vuong could already afford a lot of things, including buying licenses and hiring world-class specialists. There are different opinions about the origin of the name Very Vin. Some say simply that it is an abbreviation of Vietnamese words. Fast in English means fast, an obvious reference to the automobile theme, and the word Vin is in the names of all companies in Pham Nhat Vuong and means Vietnam. However, it's actually a bit more complicated than that. Vin is really Vietnam. But the word fast is an abbreviation, and it stands for the following: Phong Cac, style, the combination of PH is pronounced F. and tone, security, Sangdao, creativity, and Tian Fong, pioneer. Not without pathos, of course, but this uncle can afford it. First swallows the debut cars shown by the company at the Paris Motor Show in 2018 were the Lux A2.0 sedan and the Lux SA2.0 crossover. But they went into mass production only in the fall of 2019. But in June of the same year, buyers began to receive other cars that became the first serial production of VIN Fast. This vehicle was called the VIN Fast Fadel. And if you look at it carefully, you can guess that this car is Vietnamese only partly because it is an Opel Karl Rox. Why Opel? VIN Fast Fadel. There was once a General Motors factory in Hanoi. Chevrolet Aveo, Captiva, Cruze, Orlando, and Spark were assembled there. But in 2018, VIN Fast bought out this plant, which allowed them to very quickly establish production of Opel Karl Rox with their nameplate. This model was not chosen by chance. The Opel Karl was developed in South Korea, and the machine kits for the assembly of this and not only the car came from the same country. All this allowed to launch VIN Fast Fadel into production extremely quickly. However, they decided to remake it a little bit, so that it was VIN Fast Fadel, not Opel Karl Rox. Strange as it may seem, but internally the Fadel resembles Opel much less than externally. All external difference is an emblem and a grille. But in the technique it was possible to change something, using the common platform of Opel Karl and Chevrolet Spark. Under the hood of the European Opel Karl can stand only 3-cylinder engine, 1 litre, 75 horsepower, and under the hood of Fadel there is a 1.4 litre 4 from Spark with an output of 98 horsepower. Transmission is an alternative variator, front-wheel drive, but in base there are airbags, ABS, and even air conditioner. Top complete sets, of course, are richer. There can be climate control, and core stabilization system, and something else. But how much does this car cost? Theoretically, not so much, $394,500,000, about $16,900, at today's exchange rate, about 1.28 million rubles. But you have to take into account that automobile taxes in Vietnam are no match for ours. And the biggest tax must be paid when buying a car. If you want a foreign car, the amount of tax will be 100% of the cost of the car. If the car is locally assembled, 60%. According to some of our fellow citizens, a separate line goes off-road vehicles, the tax on which at the time of purchase is up to 150% of the cost of the car. There is also an annual tax, 20% for the first 3 years, then 10 to 15, but this is not our problem. But to pay even 60% more on top, VIN Fast Fadel is locally assembled after all, is a problem. But it is not our problem either. The main thing is to understand, even this car is a luxury for an ordinary Vietnamese. However, the situation in our country is not much better. Nevertheless, in 2020, VIN Fast sold 29,485 cars, more than half of which, this very Fadel. And this is already a success. Almost our own now back to Lux A2.0 and Lux SA2.0, which are considered to be VIN Fast's first in-house designed cars. For the life of me, I don't understand why VIN Fast thinks so. The Lux A2.0 sedan is built on the platform of the 6th generation BMW 5 F10 body. Of course, the motor is a licensed BMW N20B 20i4 2.0 turbo. Transmission is an 8-speed automatic ZF. But the design of the Lux A2.0 was developed at Pininfarina. As I have already said, Pham Nhat Vuong did not skimp on the factory, so he was happy to cooperate with Pininfarina, BMW, and Magna Steyr. By the way, VIN Fast CEO is former top GM executive James DeLuca, and the design director is David Leon, who drew not only the Cadillac CTS, but also the same Chevrolet Cruze, Spark, and several other cars. Not surprisingly, the exterior of the Vietnamese car turned out to be really in-house designed. And the interior design is also quite original, but, as I think, not too successful. This car can be bought in Vietnam for 1,017,175,000 to 1,239,234,000 Vietnamese dong depending on the configuration, 3,272,000 to 3,987,000 rubles. Let me remind you that the amount of tax is not included here. The pleasure, as you can see, is not cheap. It would seem, who needs it? However, monthly sales reach 1,300 copies, which is not bad by local standards. By the way, this car could also be on our market. VIN Fast wanted it very much at one time. All the more so because imports from this country would be duty-free under the free trade agreement with the EAEU. Would they buy it? The second car shown in Paris in 2018 at the same time as the Lux A 2.0 was the Lux SA 2.0 crossover. As you have already guessed, this in-house design is built on the platform of the same BMW, only this time, X5 in F15 body. It is interesting that at absolutely the same wheelbase of 2,933 mm, the dimensions of the Vietnamese have turned out to be larger than those of the Germans. To be exact, not at Vietnamese, but at the same Pininfarina, which was engaged in this car. And everything inside is the same as in Lux A 2.0 sedan, BMW in all senses. But the cost of this car is slightly higher, from 1,552,090,000 to 1,835,693,000 VND, 4,922,000 to 5,821,000 rubles. A crossover, after all. And I also wanted to say 2 words about the real Vietnamese Lux from VIN Fast that you can still buy for now. Meet the VIN Fast president for the 2020 model year. Interestingly, it's theoretically a redesigned Lux SA 2.0 with Napa leather and Italian veneer in the interior. But the motor there is quite different. GM LT 1V8 6.2 V8, 420 horsepower, as on the Chevrolet Corvette. Maximum speed of the president is 300 km per hour. This miracle of technology costs 4,600,000,000 Vietnamese dong, 14,934,000 rubles. If there is a desire, the car is on sale on the VIN Fast website. You can still have time, although very soon the lineup of this manufacturer will change noticeably. And now, your own. During this and next year, VIN Fast plans to start selling 3 new cars built on the Vietnamese platform. Yes, without any of these BMW. But with the participation of Pininfarina. These are the VIN Fast VF31 C-Class electric crossover, the VIN Fast VF32 D-Class crossover and the VIN Fast VF33 flagship electric crossover. There isn't too much information on these cars, but there is some. The VIN Fast VF31 is a rather modest electric car. 1 electric motor, 116 horsepower, front-wheel drive, range, 300 kilometers. They promise to start selling it this fall. The expected price is 690 million Vietnamese dong, or about 2,266,000 rubles. The price of VIN Fast VF32 has not been announced yet, but it is planned to be realized from the beginning of next year. This car is more interesting at least because it can be both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. In the first case, it will have 1 electric motor with a capacity of 204 horsepower. In the second, 2, 408 horsepower. Power reserve promises about 500 kilometers. We are waiting. But the VF33 is right at the top. Apparently, its motors are the same as in VIN Fast VF32, because there are 2 of them and their total power is the same 408 horsepower. But the drive can be only 4-wheel drive. And also, a 7-seat saloon and a range increased to 550 kilometers. How much it will cost is still unknown. So, too, we wait for February next year. It remains only to add, but almost all VIN Fast cars could be in our market. There were attempts to do something in this direction, but the pandemic prevented. Let's see what happens next. As you have already realized, a car from Vietnam is still not cheap, but there is no way. And VIN Fast doesn't just make cars. A significant share of production is mopeds, which are so popular in Vietnam. Not from a good life, of course, they are popular, but that's the way it is. Maybe we could use their moped someday. We thank for help in finding information Andrei Trubin, the head of the public group cars from DPRK and other exotic countries. In conclusion, the journey of transforming a BMW with a V8 engine from a Corvette into a unique masterpiece in Vietnam showcases the incredible ingenuity and passion of the king of Ukrainian Doshirak. This project not only highlights the fusion of cultures and automotive engineering but also serves as an inspiring testament to what can be achieved with creativity and determination. As we witness this remarkable build, it reminds us that innovation knows no borders, and the spirit of craftsmanship can thrive anywhere. Thank you for joining us on this exciting adventure.